Do you know who really built Rome? The stingy. Yes, you heard that right. The founders of Rome were tough farmers who ate turnips, drank water from the stream, and considered the word luxury a slur. For them, the greatest virtue was parsimony, frugality. If a Roman general was found with more than 5 kilograms of silver in his house, he would face a formal investigation. But history has a strange sense of humor. When Hannibal was defeated and the Mediterranean turned into a Roman lake, Rome didn't just gain a victory. It was hit by a tsunami, a financial tsunami. When the treasury of the Kingdom of Macedonia was brought to Rome, so much wealth flooded in that the state stopped collecting taxes from its citizens. Imagine that. The government tells you no more taxes, we're loaded. It sounds great, doesn't it? But free cheese is only found in a mousetrap. That humble town suddenly transformed into the New York, the Dubai of the ancient world. Virtue was no longer in style. Now status was measured by how much you spent, how much you ate, and how much you vomited. Romans would eat until they were full, throw up, and go back to eating. They called these vomitoriums. Now, the vomiting room might be a popular myth, but the mindset behind it was very real. Today, we aren't on the battlefield. Put down your swords. Today, we're investigating Rome's consumerism mania, its shopping mall culture, and history's first global logistics network. Welcome. The Roman mall is now open. When the money arrived, society's settings were corrupted. Rome split right down the middle. On one side, the old guard, the conservatives. On the other, the modernists, the Hellenists. This fight might sound familiar. It's the classic clash between the elders shouting, "The youth are lost," and the kids saying, "The world has changed, Grandpa." In the left corner, Cato the Elder. This man was the most stubborn, grumpy character history has ever seen. The leader of Rome's traditionalist movement. He hated Greek culture. To him, a Roman should work the fields, gut his enemies in war, and speak little. Cato would shout in the Senate, "These Greeks with their fancy words, perfumes, and soft clothes are feminizing our youth." He went so far that he refused to let Greek slaves educate his son. He did it himself, saying, "I won't let these snobs brainwash my boy." Cato's virtue was also quite dark. We're talking about a man who said, "Sell your slaves when they get old. Don't let them eat for free." A true capitalist farmer. In the right corner, Scipio Aemilianus, the heir to the legendary family that defeated Hannibal. Scipio spoke Greek, hung out with philosophers, and shaved every day. A shocking level of metrosexuality for that era. He started an intellectual group called the Scipionic Circle. Scipio's logic was, "Gentlemen, if you want to rule the world, brute force isn't enough. You need art, philosophy, and diplomacy. Let's not just imitate the Greeks, let's surpass them." Who won this fight? Comfort did. The Roman youth didn't listen to Cato. Why would they? Why plow a field under the sun when you could get a massage in a bathhouse while reading Homer? Greek statues, Greek chefs, and Greek teachers invaded Rome. As Horace famously put it, captive Greece took captive her savage conqueror. But this cultural shift wasn't innocent. It brought with it a terrifying appetite. Now, I'm going to show you the greatest proof of Roman wealth. It's not the Colosseum, it's not the Pantheon, it's not the gold coins. It's this hill, Monte Testaccio. In Italian, it means Mount Pottery. Tourists think this is a natural hill. They hike on it. They eat at restaurants nearby. But this is 100% man-made. And do you know what it's made of? Trash. This is the garbage dump of the ancient world. It consists of the discarded olive oil containers consumed by the people of Rome. Exactly 53 million broken amphorae, a mountain 35 meters high with a 1-kilometer circumference. Why does this matter? Because this dump tells the story of Rome's logistical miracle. The Romans didn't just throw these amphorae away randomly. They stacked them with engineering precision. They poured lime between them to prevent odors. Even more interesting, the tituli picti. Essentially, the barcodes of the ancient world. Look at what's written here. Tare weight, the weight of the empty jar. Net weight, the amount of oil inside. Merchant name, who brought the goods. Controller's signature, customs approval. This is exactly the same system used in a modern Amazon or FedEx warehouse. But in the 2nd century BC, olive oil produced in Spain was loaded onto ships, reached the port of Ostia, was carried to Rome by river barges and consumed right here. Since cleaning and sending the empty jars back was more expensive than making new ones, they just broke them and tossed them. Disposable culture wasn't invented by modern man. The Romans did it first. This hill is the most concrete monument to how the Roman people turned into consumption monsters. As consumption increased, so did greed. Rome was no longer fighting for self-defense. It was fighting for plunder. They needed more slaves, more artwork, more gold. And so we come to 146 BC, what historians call the Year of Horror. In this single year, 2 jewels of the Mediterranean, 2 massive metropolises, were wiped off the map. First, Carthage, Hannibal's homeland. The Romans waited 50 years. Finally, Cato's famous demand, Carthago delenda est, Carthage must be destroyed, came true. Scipio Aemilianus besieged the city. It was house-to-house, street-to-street combat, hand-to-hand fighting on the rooftops. A 700-year-old civilization, its libraries, its temples, burned for 17 days. 90% of the population died. The remaining 50,000 were sold into slavery. But in that moment, one of the most iconic scenes in history took place. Scipio, having destroyed his enemy, didn't cheer. He began to cry. He turned to his teacher, Polybius, and recited those famous lines from Homer. "The day shall come when sacred Troy shall fall." Polybius asked, "What do you mean, General?" Scipio pointed to the smoke rising from Carthage. "I am afraid, Polybius, one day someone else will give the same order for Rome. Everything that rises must fall." Among the ruins of Carthage, Scipio saw that Rome had already begun to rot from within. Second, the looting of Corinth. That same year in Greece, the city of Corinth rebelled. Rome's response was disproportionate force. They entered the city and put every man to the sword. The women and children were sold. The city was filled with art, priceless statues, 500-year-old paintings. Did the Roman soldiers value art? No. The historian Polybius writes, "I saw soldiers spreading world-famous paintings on the ground to use as mats for rolling dice." General Mummius shouted to his soldiers as they loaded statues onto ships, "Handle them with care. If you break them, I'll make you replace them with new ones." The man thought a masterpiece by Phidias was as replaceable as a wooden stool. This was the new spirit of Rome, incredibly powerful, incredibly rich, but visionless and tasteless. A nouveau riche empire. So where did all that gold and plunder go? Was it distributed to the people? Of course not. Senators and generals used the money to buy up all the land in Italy. They created massive estates called latifundia. Remember the poor farmers who built Rome, the devoted soldiers who fought Hannibal. When they returned home after 10 years of war, what did they find? Their farms had been sold or seized due to debt. Worse yet, the wealthy landowners were using the free slaves brought from the wars to work the fields. How can a free Roman peasant compete with a slave who receives no wage, only food? He can't. Economics 101. Cheap labor drives out the local worker. The farmers abandoned their land. They migrated to the city of Rome. A crowd of jobless, powerless, hungry, and angry people. The proletariat was being born. As Rome's population raced toward 1 million, the streets became a powder keg. While the rich sat in their villas eating grapes and debating philosophy, downstairs, in the streets, knives were being sharpened. Rome conquered the world. It defeated Hannibal. It erased Carthage, but it couldn't defeat its greatest enemy, itself. Money rotted Roman morals. A slave economy destroyed the Roman middle class. On one side, the greatest wealth in history, Monte Testaccio. On the other, the greatest income inequality in history. In the next episode, a young man will step onto the stage to challenge this injustice. His name, Tiberius Gracchus. Scipio's brother-in-law. He will cry out, "The wild beasts have their dens, but the men who fight for Rome have not a foot of earth to call their own." On that day, politics will end, and violence will begin. The end of the Roman Republic and the era of civil wars is starting. Buckle up, because next week blood will run through the streets of Rome, and please recycle those olive oil bottles. Don't be like Rome.